I think nearly all writers have stories that they have started but never finished. It's the curse of being blessed with too many ideas and not enough time to explore them. There are many reasons why projects get abandoned. Sometimes it's due to a block, sometimes it's just due to life getting in the way. However, there's no rule to say that once a project has been abandoned, there's no returning to it. Hello everyone and welcome to another Writer's Rambles video. I'm attempting to make these videos a bit more regularly. I know they're the reason that many of you found and subscribed to my channel, so I'm aiming to try bring them back. To anyone who's new, hello, my name is K.T.KAYE. I am a published author with 2 novels released and more on the way. However, I never studied writing. Writing was a hobby that I enjoyed alone. I never thought it would become my job, and it was just simply a hobby that I took up one day that I had too many daydreams to contain in my head. Because of this, I've often felt lacking. Unlike other authors who have studied the craft of writing, I found myself within a career and a community which I knew very little about. However, as my career has progressed, I have learned, and I have studied, and I have cultivated my skills as a writer. When I look back on my first novel that I released, I cannot help but feel a little embarrassed by it. Even though it has been published and done well, I know that if I was to write it again now, with the knowledge I now possess, it would be better. I am still learning, still discovering new things about writing and about this industry. I am sure there are many other people out there, perhaps watching this video, who like me like to write but have never studied the art and feel a little lost within the writing world. So I have decided to restart this series on my channel, where we uncover and learn about different aspects of writing together, and I share with you my Writer's Rambles. Today we are talking about returning to an old writing project. In one of my recent vlogs, I finished my current writing project. In this video, I discussed how I originally came up with the idea for this story back in 2013, abandoned it, and then returned to the project again in 2023, literally a decade later. So I wanted to talk about how you go about returning to an old writing project after such a long gap. I think the first thing to consider is why you want to return to this project. There are maybe many reasons why we as writers put down a project, but the reason for wanting to pick it back up is equally important. In my case, I always intended to pick the story back up again eventually. However, I was writing other things and I hadn't planned to get back to it just yet. This changed when I was given new inspiration for the project. Now, inspiration can come from anywhere. It might be that you read a book or watch a movie that has something in it that reminds you of a project you put down. In my case, I was literally about to go to sleep when I suddenly had the idea for the first chapter. It was like I was watching the movie in my head and I just saw how it was going to play out. So I got out of bed, grabbed my notebook and started making notes, and here we are. That's literally how I ended up returning to this project. It was the right time for this story, as cheesy as that sounds. When returning to a past project, it's essential to understand where you left it. Even if, like in my case, you have new ideas for the story, it's important to see what you'd had before so that you can use or discard it as you go. Start by reading what you've written. Not just the chapters you wrote, but the notes you made, the character profiles, the dump page of ideas, or the outline if you had one. Go back and try to rediscover what you wanted from this story before, where it was going to go, the characters, and see if these are things you still want. After that, it's time to think. Think and reevaluate. Yes, look for the flaws and the problems that you had with the story before, but also look for the good, those moments that sparked this project in the first place. You might end up scrapping most of what you wrote before, but you never know what might end up being helpful and useful later on, or whether a past idea can inform your present one. See if there's something missing or lacking. If you stopped writing this project because of a block, and because you found yourself stuck somewhere, then analyse that. Look at that block now after having a break from the project. It might help you untangle what the problem was and help you move forward. Take notes of what you want to do next. This might depend on how far through the draft you were before and what your new ideas are. In my case, I had some new ideas for the story, so I wanted to start afresh and rewrite the few chapters that I had written before. However, these past chapters weren't a waste. They helped me work out how I could improve the plot structure. If you choose to completely rewrite, then use your old work as like a zero draft or a very rough first draft for you to bounce off and work with, even if your ideas have changed. You never know when it might come in handy. I rewrote my project, however, there was an idea from that first rough draft that I ended up bringing back 3 drafts and 10 years later. On the flip side, you might reread your project and really like it. Your new inspiration or drive to return to this project might have nothing to do with having a block. It might be that you would have been forced to put the project down for external reasons, therefore you can literally just pick up exactly where you left off. You might have to go back and change up a few things to make the story fit with your new ideas, but you can literally just carry on writing almost as if you never left it. Pick up on that chapter or that paragraph. Wherever you stopped, you can start writing and get that first draft finally complete, or the second or the third draft. There's no ruling to say you can only abandon a project and return to them if they're in their early stages. Getting back into a project can be hard. It can be hard to work out what you want, and especially if there's some major revisions, it can be hard to shake off that sense of that you should stick and honour that original idea. However, this is just your first draft. Even if your past project was on draft 3 or whatever, this is still the first draft of this newly returned to project. So have fun with it, and remember, you just need to get the words on paper. Everything will be edited later, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And just do it. If you start having new ideas for an old project or find yourself thinking about those characters, go back to them. I had no idea I would return to this project after a decade, yet the ideas came to me and now I'm writing the second book in this series. Just go with that feeling and enjoy your writing. Now, this is simply what works for me, how I go back to writing projects. But this might not work for everyone, and that's okay. We all work and write differently, and sometimes we need to discover what doesn't work for us in order to find out what does. How many unfinished writing projects do you have waiting for you to return to? Do you have anything you do when you're returning to a project? Do let me know in the comments below. I look forward to learning something new, and perhaps we'll be able to help out a fellow writer. Until next time, my lovely bookish friends,